Hey everybody, I'm really excited today to share two awesome books with you on the themes of empathy and tolerance. These are going to be awesome additions to your classroom library. The first book I've chosen is I'm Not a Number by Kathy Day Dupis and Jenny K. Kuzer, illustrated by Gillian Newland. This is the first book written by author Jenny K. Dupis. She was born in Northern Ontario in the Nipissing First Nation. She has her doctorate in educational leadership from the University of Calgary and a Master's of Education in Special Education. She focuses on topics pertaining to Indigenous issues, leadership, diversity, and inclusion. Kathy Kaser is a well-decorated author, having won the Silver Birch, Red Maple, the Hadamac, and Jewish Book Award. She lives in Toronto with her family and talks with adults on how to teach sensitive material to young children. Her most recent book, The Magician of Auschwitz, has won several awards. Gillian Newland is an artist living in Toronto, Ontario. Her preferred medium of illustration is through ink, pencils, and watercolor. She has illustrated many other books, including Big and Small, Room for All. So a little bit about this book. Irene is an 8-year-old girl in the Nipissing Reserve number 10 when the government comes to take her away to a residential school. The story begins with Irene, her two brothers, George and Ephraim, at a home as a shadowy figure fills their doorway to take them to a residential school. Her parents are reluctant at first to let their children leave, but they understand that as a part of the new law, they must let them go. The story highlights some of the traumatic events that Irene experienced at the residential schools and touches on one of the most dark parts of Canadian history with elegance. It is one of the few books on this subject that can be read by an audience that is younger. Her scissors chewed through my long black hair, and I watched my locks fall in a pool around me. This meant much more to me than a haircut, though I could never explain that to Sister Mary. Back home, long hair was a source of pride. We cut it when we lost a loved one. Now it felt as if a part of me was dying with every strand that fell. This book would be a really exciting book to teach in grade 5, as it's focused on Canada, the land, histories, and the stories. I love this book because it's one of the few books that touch on this topic. The illustrations are beautiful and capture the emotions of the students through the pictures. Although this book is a bit text-heavy, the illustrations demonstrate the power dynamic between the students and the residential school staff. I'm obsessed with this book because it really shows, as a history lover, it tackles one of the most difficult subjects to teach and offers an excellent segue to introduce the topic. And it really can be taught at any age level. You can introduce it in a high school class or even an elementary school class. This book has won many awards, most recent the 2018 Red Cedar Award for Information Book winner and the Atlantic Children's Choice Book Award. And it's won 12 other awards since the publication date in 2016. The reviewers say that Gillian Newland's somber illustrations done with muted palette of grays, green, and brown beautifully capture the written words. This book is a moving look into the injustice that continues to have ramifications for First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. Another report says, residential schools and boarding school stories are hard to read, but they are vitally important books, and I Am Not a Number should be taught in schools in Canada and the US too. This book is an awesome addition to your library, and I really encourage you to check it out. It's a great piece written by a Canadian author. Everybody, so my second book today is by Alan Gratz. It's called Refugee. Alan Gratz is a decorated author, having written several award-winning books for young adults in his career. He graduated from the University of Tennessee with a college scholar degree with a specialization in creative writing and a master's degree in English education. Other books of his include Prisoner B3087, a book on a boy who endured 10 different concentration camps, and another lighthearted piece like Ban This Book, where a young girl starts a banned book library out of her locker when a library at her school bans some books. There are 3 characters with this book follows, and it's a compelling read. There's Joseph, Isabel, and Mohammed. Joseph is a Jewish boy in 1930s Nazi Germany. His father is taken into a concentration camp at Dachau, and after his father's release from the camp, they make a daring escape to Cuba to flee Nazi Germany. But as tensions rise on the boat, will they make it in time? Another story is by Isabel. Isabel is a young Cuban girl in 1994 living during Fidel Castro's reign in Cuba. Following the end of the Cold War, Cuba has fallen into a country full of turmoil, plague, and poor leadership, and famine. Her family must make an escape after their father is suspected for crimes, but on a precarious raft, which is destined for Florida, and they're not really sure if they're going to end up making it. Mohammed is the last story to follow. He is a Syrian boy living in 2015 in the middle of civil war. His family survives a traumatic accident that strikes close to home, and they must escape. but they have to make it across the border in the Middle East to further in Northern Europe, and they face many obstacles along the way. These three different stories are all strung together through a complexity of similarities. Each of these young children are faced with traumatic events in their lives, and they have to be able to overcome them. They have to leave everything behind, and they know and what they've learned, and they have to head to a brand new country. He didn't know where they would go or how long they would get out of the water. Perhaps in the light of day, they would see land, be able to swim for it. In the meantime, they had to survive the night. This book would be an excellent novel to introduce in Socials 10, as many of the outcomes focus on perspectives of globalization, which explores, quote, perspectives on the identity of lands, cultures, economics, human rights, and quality of life, end quote. This book is an incredible piece of work stringing together decades of seemingly different stories, but revealing the truth behind horrific realities of humanity. Alan Grant's book is a compelling novel, and the reader just doesn't want to put it down after the end of every chapter is truly a cliffhanger. It may seem like a lot to keep up with three separate stories, but I promise you at the end of the book, it's truly amazing how similar they are, even though these stories are decades apart. This book has won several awards, the 2018 Sidney Taylor Book Award and the 2018 National Jewish Book Award, and has been awarded 28 other awards and upcoming nominations in 2018. Reviews say it's been filled with both terrific loss and ample evidence of resilience, these memorable and tightly plotted stories contextualized to give voice to current refugee crises. Another says, a gripping, visceral, and hold-your-breath intense story of these young refugees. This book is truly a must-have book in your library, including and as well as I'm Not a Number. Thanks so much.